to have the most fun at DEF CON, the largest hacking conference in the world, you need your parents to tag along. That's really what it calls for. I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures, and that's where I was for my first DEF CON 16. I was asked on the channel what my first DEF CON was like, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It's kind of a couple different stories that happened. And probably the most interesting one is how I got there and then what's happened since. The first DEF CON, I remember 2 months before I was supposed to go, I got my hotel confirmation. And I was reading over it. I was excited. I had my flight purchased. I had my hotel there. And I was reading through, and I saw a term and condition I had not seen before. And it was that you were required to be 21 to get into your hotel room. And I don't know if they would have checked ID, but I wasn't 21 yet. So I did the only thing I could. I didn't know a lot of people there, and no one I knew was over 21. So I did the only thing I can. I invited my parents to come to DEF CON with me, or at least Vegas. I sorted through the plans, and they supported me in it. But here's the thing they didn't know. We got off the airplane. I waited for them. We got into the bus to go to the hotel. And as we started going down the strip, and they had been to Vegas before, but it was a long time ago. When I was first to Vegas, it was DEF CON, probably like DEF CON 1. I didn't even know about DEF CON at the time. I was like 10 years old. And it was where Vegas was a family place. There was like Disney Quest and GameWorks. But it had evolved since then to what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And they had stayed there at one at like the Wynn or the Bellagio. So when we were driving down the strip to the hotel of DEF CON 16, we passed Caesar's Palace. DEF CON wasn't going to happen there for another decade. Past Paris Bally's. Past the Rio. All very nice hotels. We kept going. And as the Riviera came into sight, at least my parents could, breathe a sigh of relief, because the Riv was nice. It wasn't Bellagio nice, but it was nice. But then the bus turned into Circus. I remember them thinking and looking at me going like, you cannot be serious. And somewhere when we got out of the bus, and we passed two people wearing just what looked like underwear, I just decided this was the time I would take my leave and go across the street to the Riviera. And while they worked out the hotel decorations, or the hotel accommodations, luckily I had friends all the way over at DEF CON already. They had already gone through the line. It's weird. Ever since DEF CON 16, I've never experienced LineCon. For whatever reason, I've been able to skip the line every year. Either I had a friend who had a black badge, I was eventually able to use my own black badge, and now I can either use my black badge or I go pick up my goon badge. So it's funny, like Gator Bite, who does live streaming with me on Saturdays, loves LineCon. Like, you look for him in LineCon, he makes a whole day of it. But I went on over and I got my badge, this one right here. It's huge. It's awesome. Like, there's something about like the badges at DEF CON, which just has nostalgia written all over it. But I got my badge, and on Thursday, there's not a lot going on at DEF CON. I took the whole day just to hang out with friends, and we started a tradition that has kept up anytime we can get everyone together, which is taco night. It's a Lunan taco night, and it's like 20 of us crammed into one small hotel room, and we have tacos, and it's all like made in a hotel, which is completely authorized by the hotel and completely within the rules. We make sure it's at a hotel which allows that, and like 10 pounds of ground beef from Costco. But besides that, I remember I woke up at like 6 a.m. the next day. I went over to the conference ready to experience every talk. Riviera had something really cool where they had Sky Talks, where you could go up. There was the villages up at the top, and this was like before a lot of the main villages were available. Like hardware hacking had like one little corner. SSV, the Soldering Skills Village, wasn't really established yet. But I remember it was through the lockpicking village. I went through, and I felt I cheated kind of. Like it was so cool. All the talks would fill up. If you weren't there like on time, the whole track would fill up. But there was a secret in the Sky Talks. If you went through the Sky Talk villages, there was the balcony. And I sat down at the balcony and I watched talk after talk after talk with these just legendary people like Dan Kaminsky talking about like the DNS vulnerabilities. And those might have happened years later, but I just remember soaking up every single talk. It was so cool. But it wasn't until Saturday I really got to experience something unique which comes at DEF CON. And this is what keeps me coming back and why DEF CON is so important to me and why I talk about it so much on the channel. Is I got to experience, after venturing out, that night I hung out with friends, can come back to the hotel room till like, oh goodness, like 5 a.m. And what's funny too is like, you're thinking, teenager in Vegas, what's he doing? Like, no, it was just geeking out the whole time, looking at code, talking with friends. Wasn't drinking, and it's funny, I'm not a drinker now, unless the drink has an umbrella. If you bring over like some fruity thing with like umbrellas in it, yeah, that one's for me. But it was Saturday. Saturday, I picked up a CD at one of the conference tables. Yeah, it was totally a physical CD. And yes, I did put it in my computer. It was a live disc time. It was a live disc I was booting into. But it was the digital forensics competition. It was the first competition I had ever done. I had never done digital forensics. And it was a packet capture. I started looking through the information, but I went back up to my Sky Talk box and would watch talk after talk as I just hacked away at packet captures and doing file carving for the first time ever. Oh, you learn so much for those first conferences. And as I cracked away at it, I ranked pretty high in the contest. It wasn't until later in that day where I ventured out and I sat down in the chill out lounge and I just started talking to people. And I realized that the conference wasn't like, well, there was amazing talks and there's amazing contests, and I've competed for years since then. It's the people. You feel like coming home almost. And I know it sounds so goofy if you haven't experienced it before, but you're at a place which seems to have encapsulated what the hacker culture is. And I understand it's a huge conference. At the time, it was only 8,000 people, but it's grown to like 34,000 people. So it's a huge conference space. But you were amongst geeks, other people like yourself who had passions, and it existed without creed or politics or any of the nonsense that exists. You had this carve out of geekdom, which was just you were fueled by passion. That was the thing that just connected all of us at the conference, and still does. That's what keeps me coming back. On Sunday, the final day of the conference, things started wrapping up, and I remember just hitting every talk I could, talking to everyone I could, because that is what I found to be the best part of the conference, is just interacting with so much of the community. And as I flew home and my parents had their souvenirs from Circus Circus, because that is most definitely not where they spent the entire time, I started counting down the days to the next conference. And as I look back at my DEF CON journey, starting from DEF CON 16, I started counting down the days to DEF CON 17. And I missed DEF CON 17 because I started my first job, which they forced me to miss because they didn't have the availability, even though a bunch of other individuals did go. It built resentment in me, where I ended up leaving that job because of DEF CON and a couple other reasons. But it brought me back where I have not missed a DEF CON since DEF CON 18. DEF CON 17 helped me interact with the community and whetted my appetite for competitions. I then went on and I met the team for Darknet. and eventually competed multiple times, won multiple times, but ultimately won my black badge. I then was asked to join the team, and at DEF CON 27, something weird happened. I both experienced, both firsthand and also in my nose, two friends making a forgery for a badge made of a urinal cake. You probably heard of this because it's what inspired this channel. I went and I made one of my first videos on this weird badge forgery they did with a urinal cake. And then I did a 2-hour stream on how they met the universe and how they went to like strip clubs and whatnot trying to find used urinal cakes because they couldn't find new ones. And that now has led, that video is what DEF CON saw and asked me then to do gooning. And that's why there was a ton of DEF CON videos. Like, it has absolutely not only like impacted my career, but it's definitely impacted my life because now I'm doing this channel and I'm doing live streams every single weekend with Gauri Gulo and Gatorbite, who are all on the Darknet team. It has been an incredible experience, and what's even cooler is all the people I've had to interact with, or I've gotten to interact with. DEF CON isn't the competitions. It's not the talks. It is 100% the community, and that's why I love this channel. I get to interact with you. So, gosh, if you ever have a chance to go to DEF CON, absolutely make it out there. Love your hacker family, and as always, hack on.